Dobar dan, dobri ljudi. Moje ime je Milan Vilić, a vi ste na kanalu Vilić, zapisi 2. Hvala svima koji svojim prilozima podržavaju rad kanala. Vidim da je ova jučerašnja emisija kod vas poprilično bure izazvala, to sam i pretpostavljao da će se desiti na kraju krajeva. Moram da vam se izvinim, jednu vrlo bitnu stvar jučer nisam rekao, a ona vas je verovatno i dosta, baš zato što je nisam rekao, i na neki način malo dovela u zabludu. Uvođenje digitalne rublje je na potpuno dobrovoljnoj bazi. Znači, niko ne mora da tome pristupi. 1. 2. Sistem počinje da funkcioniše od najvećih giganata privrednih i državnih službi. I to isto tako na dobrovoljnoj bazi. Nema nikakvih moranja da to mora da se uradi. Uvođenje će trajati 2 godine i bit će polako spuštano ka dole dok ne dođe do građana. Mislim da je to bitna dopuna onoga što sam juče jednostavno zaboravio da vam kažem. Drugo, što želim da vam kažem. Ja sam već puno puta o tome govorio da svo naše učešće u digitalnom svetu, svakog pojedinačno, se konstantno beleži i ništa se ne briše. Kad god ste bilo šta kliknuli u životu, ostaje zapis trajno. Amerikanci su to tako napravili. Isto sam iznosio taj podatak, znači njihovo svedočenje, da svako ko je u životu više od 300 puta kliknuo na bilo šta na internetu, poznaju ga bolje nego njegova rođena žena. Svako ko ima više od 500 klikova, poznaju ga bolje nego ti sam sebe. Ako uzmemo da neki prosječni korisnik interneta po bilo kom osnovu, znači ide na YouTube, ide na sajtove, čita vesti ove, čita vesti one, pušta filmove, muziku, šta god. Barem 100 puta dnevno klikne. Ima i koji će to da urade 500 puta u toku dana. Vi sad možete zamisliti koji je nivo njihovog poznavanja vas. Da li vi imate zvanični ID ili nemate, to je potpuno nebitna stvar. Vi ne možete od njih da pobegnete niti da se sakrijete. Na primjer, otvorite novu mail adresu. Pa povezat će tu vašu novu mail adresu sa postojećim vašim fajlom bez problema. Možete lažnih imena da dajete kakvi god hoćete. Bez problema povezujete. Šta vam hoću reći? Od njih pobeći ne možete. Možete jednu drugu stvar da uradite. Da osvestite da to tako funkcioniše, da vi niste svoji i privatni i da ta neka naša želja za našom privatnošću je nama još uvek dopuštena kao iluzija, da ne bi poludili načisto. Imati tajnost u vremenu u kojem kad šetate ulicom ste uvek pod kamerom, jesu tako iluzije. Sa time se mora živeti. ali se može, kažem, neke druge stvari učiniti. A to je da kontrolu nad time oduzmemo, na primjer, Amerikancima i damo sami sebi. A to je situacija kada smo uzeli svoju državu u svoje ruke. Pa će onda ta država moći da angažuje sve što je neophodno, da, na primjer, napravi srpski intranet, znači unutrašnji zatvoreni sistem. I onda će moći da zaštiti svoje građane od spoljnih uticaja. Kako? Tako što ćeš prema internetu da postaviš kompletan firewall, pa ćeš sa tog svetskog interneta da pustiš u svoj prostor samo ono što ti hoćeš. A stručnjaci će da vode računa o tome šta sme da uđe. Sa kojih IP adresa nešto sme da uđe u srpski prostor. Pa će država da vodi računa o zaštiti svojih građana i njihove privatnosti. I ne postoji drugi način na ovome svetu, u univerzumu, u kosmosu, da se to uradi. Samo na nivou države je moguće. I da se potpuno isključiš od tog spoljnog sveta. Jer ovo trovanje mozgova u Srbiji, koje nas je dovelo u situaciju da, i to je namerno proizvedeno stanje, da je ubijen bilo kakav autoritet, da niko nikome ništa ne veruje, da vam je svako sumnjiv, nas je dovelo u suštini u stanje paralize. I tako paralizovanima onda oni upravljaju. Pa imamo situaciju da ono čudo Božje, gde su negde u Srbiji napravili onaj dernek, ovaj nepomnjanik i onaj Vučićević i ona glođanja koski i tuča za pljeskavice besplatne, pa to nam i rade. To su sve operacije mind controla. Kontrola uma. Znači, ne zalažem se i ja za tu vrstu digitalizacije za koja nam dolazi sa zapada. Naravno da sam najogorčeniji protivnik svega toga. Ja sam vam dao ruski primjer kako država u koju 80% tih građana veruje, dokazano, vodi računa o sebi i svojim interesima i u skladu sa novim tehnologijama pokušava to da organizuje na pravi način. I ja to jedino tako razumem. I da će dati Bog da mi ovde smognemo snage, da preuzmemo svoju državu u svoje ruke i da je organizujemo na način na koji nam odgovara. Bez spoljnog uticaja, bez spoljnog mešanja. Jer ušli smo u fazu kada ti moraš da stvoriš jednu vrstu karantina. U digitalnom svetu apsolutno karantina. Zatvoriš se. Ništa nećeš izgubiti. Nećeš koristiti, na primjer, ove aplikacije koje svi koristimo. Viber, šta ja znam, ove komunikacione, Skype, da ne nabrajam. Ali ćeš koristiti iste tako, jel, srpske. Pa ćeš napraviti srpski YouTube, koji će moći da ide s polja, ali na taj srpski neće moći izvana da dođe. Ono što nije odobrano. Znači, savremenost treba razumeti, ne treba od nje bežati. Ali se mora uložiti ogroman napor da ti ostaneš u tom svetu živ. Pa ćeš ti onda morati na nivou države da nekoliko instituta organizuješ sa nekoliko desetina hiljada zaposlenih stručnjaka koji će se baviti tim poslom. Moraš da ih školuješ, da ih obrazuješ, da ih uvodiš u sistem, da to organizuješ, da sam radiš istraživanja, da sam radiš pisanje svog operativnog sistema koji je baza i osnova svega, da te ne špijuniraju. A ovako si na izvolite. A sada vam sledi nastavak ove emisije koju sam jučer dao. Samo da ponovim da je taj Clayton Morris jedan od veoma utjecajnih ljudi u Americi koji intenzivno radi na raskrinkavanju američke duboke države, on i njegova supruga. Neverovatno dobro upućen čovjek koji je imao razlog zašto vam je ovo pustio. A ja se potrudio da vam to na neki način uobličim, da možete da razumete šta je i rečeno. Pa uživajte.
And I don't know if this is current. I know it was current in the past. It was happening in the past. I'm not sure about what the status of the base is today. So, but there's that one, and there's all these trains. Some of the research I found early on was videos of these huge tunnel boring machines that actually heat their way through the rock and vitrify the rock through melting as they pass through the rock, making these huge tunnels and hollowing out huge areas underground. And when you vitrify the rock, vitrification is the rock is melted to the point where it turns to a type of glass, and it makes for a very strong thing. It's not like a tunnel where you have to prop it up like in a mine. It's a very strong. It leaves a very strong wall that's not going to collapse unless it gets exploded somehow.
So your involvement in the space program. So I think for a lot of people who are sitting there saying, well, okay, she's talking about books and things that have been written about it, but you experienced this firsthand. So,
yes.
And you talked at the beginning about other people who are, there are many other people like you. I
don't want to take too much time with it. Yeah.
There are many other people. Sorry, let me just finish that thought. There are many other people like you out there who have this information, who are sitting on this information. Some of them have come forward. Some of them have already gone on the record about the secret space program. You are, but there's very few. There are only a handful of people who've spoken out about this. So what is the secret space program?
The secret space program is, it kind of fits in with that Alternative 3 book, was a venture out into space to colonize Mars and have a base on the moon as kind of a jumping off place to go to Mars. That was in Alternative 3 also. So my personal experience with that was being in the military, doing my job as an auto track radar operator, and then I got out of the military, and I thought that was really all there was to it. So, but after I got out of the military, certain situations were causing me what I didn't realize at the time was pretty severe PTSD, severe anxiety attacks, where my heart would take off at a mad gallop, and I would have trouble breathing. And I just was like, what the heck is this? Where is this coming from? I don't have any experiences that even help me to attach to this. So my body was having PTSD, but I didn't really realize what it was for. So I went through this about 9 years, and I nearly committed suicide because the anxiety and the rages got so bad. I was afraid I was just making my family miserable. And and I decided not to commit suicide because I think spiritually, I think it's a really bad idea. I won't go into the story around that, but it's a bad idea. So I thought, well, I can't go on living like this, so I got to make a commitment to healing. And out of that commitment, which was a very powerful commitment to healing, I encountered the fact through a friend that I had 3 months of missing time from 1980 when I was serving in the Air Force and out on the Nevada test site on the radar range. And I was taken out in the middle of the night to test the radar on UFOs. And they couldn't be tracked, which was what they were hoping for, I imagine. And they were either real UFOs, or I saw them in the sky after we ran the radar trying to track them. They couldn't be tracked. And then I was taken to some kind of facility that I think may have been Area 51. You know, they wanted to keep me in the dark. They gave me fatigues to wear that night with no rank insignia, no name tags, no identifying marks of any kind. Me and the other people that were out there to run the radar were forbidden to speak to each other at gunpoint. They were quite serious about isolating us from each other and any kind of sharing or talking we might have done, which was terrifying. And then we were taken to this medical facility, and I personally was taken off into a little room after sitting in the waiting room for a while, and I was injected with an experimental chemical. They kind of tricked me into it. I was laying there not knowing what was going to happen, and then some guy with a hypodermic came walking up beside the right side of my head, and he injected me before I really knew what was even happening. And my body went immediately into shock. I was taken down a long staircase and tossed in this little room where I went through the effects of that injection. And I think people were watching me go through the effects through a one-way mirror. Then I was taken out of that room. Well, I was still shaken, still in shock from that injection, but not screaming anymore. And I was sexually assaulted in front of 8 people by 2 security guards. And that's really kind of the tip of the iceberg that I found out. But it certainly explained why I was having all the rages and all the anxiety and all the effects of PTSD. And I found out some years later that one of the things one of those security guards would do to me to traumatize me into breaking my memory and putting it in the subconscious was he would strangle me until I lost consciousness while raping me. And I learned from Fred Burks, who worked in the White House for quite some time, that is an actual mind control technique that they use on people to sexually traumatize them so badly that they take that memory and everything surrounding it and they break it off, and it goes into the deep subconscious where it stays hidden, either forever or until the person finds a way to retrieve it, which I did. And so that was the first part of it. Then I found out through later hypnosis sessions and that I was taken off planet, I was taken to the moon, and I was used for labor and sexual recreation for a week at a time. And the way they were able to get away with it and have me go missing for that week was the people that I would have been working with at the test site out on the radar range were told that I had gotten sick, and they put me on a bus back to Las Vegas. And then the people that I would have normally been hanging out with in Las Vegas during that week thought, well, she's just uprange doing her usual shift up there. And so it was possible for me to be missed for an entire week without anybody going looking for me. And it's pretty horrible stuff, you know, it's pretty horrible stuff. And so on the moon, there was the hard labor, there was not being allowed to sleep. So you're worked during the day and you're passed around in a group of guys for the night times.
And these are human beings.
And you don't get sleep. These are, yes, human beings.
These are human beings as part of the Air Force or part of the program that are just like using you as a sex slave?
I think some of them were probably military, but I think a lot of them were just workers on the moon. They were contract workers. I think a lot of them were civilian, and they just put us in the room, me and some other girls, and said, you can do whatever you want, just don't leave any marks, you know? And
have you ever spoken to any of these other women? Have any of these other women ever come forward? Obviously
not
you had
to
a
me.
break.
Not to me.
We know that U.S. Marines have confirmed the trafficking of humans using these advanced aerospace technologies. Some brave United States Marines have come forward and witnessed these advanced craft transporting human bodies, being used for human trafficking purposes. So you're not the only one.
Yeah.
In fact, there's multiple sources on this front who've now confirmed to us here at Redacted that is the case. Have you talked to any of those individuals as well who've also become whistleblowers?
Yeah, I have. Tony Rodriguez, he is got books out there now, and he's speaking and doing all kinds of things with his memories and the things that happened to him. And he actually worked on a base on a moon called Ceres, which I think is out around Saturn. Can't recall right up, but I know the moon Ceres exists, and it's either around Jupiter or Saturn, I think. So anyway, he lived and worked out there, and he was taken as a child. He worked on a base there, but he was taken in childhood, and he was sexually trafficked in childhood for a long time, and just unthinkable horrors happened to him as a child.
So when you saw that Space Force promotional video that basically talks about moon bases, what did you think when you saw that?
Yeah.
Here it is. Like they're not hiding. It's like they're not hiding it anymore. You've worked at the moon base. You've been to the moon base, and here it is in a U.S. Space Force video.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was kind of shocked when I first saw it. I thought, wow, that is a huge disclosure for an official Space Force video. And a lot of people probably, it just does a flyby for them, and it doesn't really register on how important a statement that really is. It's very important. It admits that our enemies can build bases on the dark side of the moon. You know, our enemies can build bases on the moon. Let that sink in. In an official Space Force video, that is a huge disclosure. And I'm pretty sure that's why we now have a Space Force, that Trump started the Space Force because he knew some things, he knew this stuff was going on out there.
How many bases would you say are on the moon? Is it just one large base? Are there competing bases, a Chinese base, a Russian base, a United States base? What is there? What does it look like?
Yeah, I think that there are several, and I think they're not all human. I think some of them are extraterrestrial bases.
And they're all on the dark side of the moon. We know the U.S. astronauts, the Apollo astronauts.
Yes.
There's plenty of record of those Apollo astronauts seeing craft landing on outside the crater perimeters. You can actually listen to the audio. Yeah, which was on the public channel. I think then it was switched
I've listened to that audio as well. And
what did they say?
All this stuff out there about the moon landings being faked, and I think a lot of them were. You know, once they got wind of what was going on up there, a lot of them were faked to just give people the appearance that a moon program was continuing. But there was actual travel to the moon by astronauts where they saw these things that you're talking about.
Edgar Mitchell, and
it wasn't all faked.
Right.
Yeah.
So, secret space program, are we just talking about, I mean, hopefully, and I don't know that the human trafficking component continues at this point, but it seems like it has, or it is. We know from U.S. Marines who've been in devastation areas like the Indonesian tsunami, and other areas where these U.S. Marines witnessed advanced aerospace technology craft, which to us would look like UFOs, landing, gathering humans for the purposes of trafficking, taking these humans, human bodies, transporting them. And a lot of times this happens in earthquakes or tsunamis. Again, these are not my words. These are the words of U.S. Marines who've now blown the whistle on this and witnessed it in action under the threat of being shot because they were witnessing what was happening here with this black off-the-books projects. So when you talk about the secret space program, is it simply a moon base? How big in scope is it? How many members of the United States military do you think it involves?
Well, if it's a way station between Earth and Mars, if the moon bases are a way station between Earth and Mars, then people go there, they may get some kind of conditioning, they may get some kind of orientation, and then maybe they go on to Mars or they stay and work on the moon. But Mars has people there. If I could talk to Elon Musk, I would say, you know, you wear that t-shirt that says Occupy Mars. Mars is already occupied. And it's occupied by different factions. Our human faction there is just one. And some memories that I've gotten back recently are about myself living and working on Mars in what's called a 20 and back. And
a 20 and back.
And those haven't been a 20 and back, yeah. And we don't need to get into that now. If you want to have me back on to talk about that, we can. But I will say that the Cydonia area, where, if you remember back when pictures came out of the Cydonia area, where the pyramids are and the face on Mars are, that actually was a huge city. It was bombed in ancient times, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, into smithereens. The face remains, the pyramid remains, but there is now an archaeological dig there going on there with human beings. And I was one of the people that worked on that dig.
You worked on the dig on Mars?
Yes.
Did it have an atmosphere? Were you wearing like some
there is
sort
a
of
thin
space
atmosphere
suit?
on Mars. It's not like on Earth. And I suppose you could liken it to being at a very high altitude. And I think it takes time to get used to it. And sometimes you have to wear masks in certain areas, like wearing masks at the dig. Because if we were excavating things and we ran into an ancient pathogen against which we had no defense, the mask was a much more sophisticated mask than the paper masks we have down here. But it would protect us from any ancient pathogens we might run into.
When you see the movie The Martian, the atmosphere is, you know, non-existent basically, and you're going to freeze in a matter of seconds. That's not Mars?
Well, if you go back to that Alternative 3 book where they found a video that said there was air on Mars, and the book was such a threat to the powers that be back then, all those years ago, that they had to backpedal and say, oh, it was just fiction. This book was all just fiction. We just thought it would be fun to publish this book as fiction. You go back and read that book today, with the kind of knowledge that we have of, you know, at least some people knowledge that we have what's going on today, that book probably was most likely was not fiction at all. You know, they wanted to know if there was air on Mars to find out if they could go there and build bases. Again, underground bases were for people to escape the surface if the surface of the Earth became unlivable. Same thing with the Martian bases. Okay, they wanted to have an escape place to go to in case Earth became uninhabitable.
Sve vas pozdravljam I volim, za carstvo nebesko u slobodnoj Srbiji. Živeli.